Hi everyone, this is Paul Cooper with Totes and Notes. I'm bringing you another market meltdown. It's currently Sunday, January 27th, and we're going to start off on Zero Hedge. This first article is titled Laughing Stocks, and it's basically covering how when the market turns extremely bullish or bearish, but in this case bullish, that the people saying that it's going to turn bearish or turn bad become laughing stocks, and how people become complacent. And right now we're in roughly a decade-long bull market, and so they're saying we're somewhere between extreme bullish complacency and extreme bullish condescension. Because when you get people out there start saying, hey, look, things are getting bad, it's going to get really bad, people are like, oh no, it's not going to get that bad. And if you look at it, markets have come kind of back up, especially since, we got news that the government's supposed to reopen. So, we get a little bit bad news, it drops a little bit, and then it goes back up, and people are just pretty complacent about it. This article talks about some historical stuff, and it's good, but the main takeaway to me is when people get used to one thing. Yeah, everyone will say, oh, the market will eventually turn one way or the other. Or if you watch Game of Thrones, winter's coming. Yeah, you're eventually going to be right. If there's only a few options, it's eventually going to probably swing back your direction. You could say the same thing about politics. Oh, the Republicans are going to win this time, or the Democrats are going to win this time. You're eventually going to be right. But I think the biggest takeaway from this is to not get complacent. Good things will end and bad things should hopefully end, and it'll swing to the other way. So you need to be open to that. Our next article is Bank of England refuses to release Venezuela's gold after U.S. lobbying. This is kind of interesting. Hopefully you've all been hearing about Venezuela. The past few years have been very rough for the people there. They've got a socialist economy and government that's just completely and utterly failed. Venezuela used to be, the envy of Latin America, used to be extremely nice, had a lot of prosperity due to their oil reserves, and then we had a socialist government come in, take over everything, start price fixing stuff, and it's just awful now. It's basically like something out of Mad Max, or if you played the game Fallout, just a horrible dystopian society right now, and it's getting really bad. And so they're trying to get some of their gold back from the Bank of England, but the Bank of England's not releasing it. Their reasoning is that the current government's so corrupt that they're afraid that they'll run away with it and sell it and line their own pockets. Not bad reasoning, but honestly my real opinion is that the Bank of England just doesn't want to give it up. Whenever there's a large sum of gold or precious metals that usually wants to be repatriated to a government, they usually drag their feet, because here's what they don't want to tell you, is usually they don't have it. They don't have it on hand. They're supposed to hold it for you, but what they do is they go out there and they sell it and they use it for other things, just like a bank will use your money to make money for itself and use some arbitrage. And so they probably just don't have it at the moment, and that's why they don't want to give it back. So they're trying to look all nice and say, oh, we're afraid that you'll take your people's gold and sell it for personal gain. But in all honesty, it's probably they just don't have it and they don't want to give it back because of that. It's kind of weird, though. I mean, you give it to a bank to hold, it's yours, and they refuse to give it back. Doesn't seem right. Our last article on Zero Hedge is titled Americans are fleeing Illinois and moving to Idaho, ? So this is kind of a cool little article. It just talks about how roughly 14% of the U.S. population moves from one state to another each year. But there are a few states, and Illinois is one of the biggest ones, where it's net people leaving. And it's pretty obvious their state government's insane. Taxes are extremely high. And they have a lot of state pensions. Their pensions are completely jacked. There's no way they'll ever be able to pay for their obligations. So people are leaving. And the funny part, though, is you think, oh, maybe they moved to Colorado, Florida, Texas, other states that are pretty nice, pretty strong, have good economies. But one of the biggest ones that people are moving to is Idaho, of all places. And as we go further down the article here, it talks about how there's been a really big move from some of these, I guess you'd call them blue states, to some of the Democrat, mainly focused states, where it's super expensive to live, the taxes are super high, and they're moving to other states that would be traditionally considered more conservative. So Texas is a big state where people are moving to. Colorado, Carolinas. And so people are leaving the Northeast and the West Coast and kind of moving to the Southeast and southern states and then kind of middle of the country just because it's so much more affordable. So these are just some interesting trends. Idaho, I thought, was extremely surprising. It's funny, I've never been there and I've only met a few people that have lived there, but it seems like everyone that has moved to Idaho that I've talked to ends up loving it. You would never think about it. You know, those people just think about it for potatoes, but it's actually some beautiful country. And I guess people like it there because it's a little bit smaller government, a little bit slower pace of living. But it's just interesting trends to keep an eye on. Last year we talked a little bit about how people were kind of moving out of some of the more expensive cities and moving to the Midwest cities, just because, especially millennials, because they could actually afford to live. And I think we're going to see those trends continue, especially as the economy worsens. It'll be interesting to see, though. Who knows? You know, if the economy really swings bad, then the prices on the coast could drop dramatically where people don't have to move as long as they still have jobs. It's been kind of a slow week in news and economic articles because of the government shutdown, so I think it's fitting that our last article be about, you know, Trump announcing the temporary end to government shutdown. Now, you probably don't need to read this article because you probably saw it on TV already. They're opening the government for roughly 3 weeks, and so everything should be funded until February 15th, and then who knows what's going to happen. You know, Trump's vowing that he's not going to extend funding if he doesn't get the border securities and the money for the wall and everything else he wants down there. But who knows? I mean, it doesn't really matter what your political affiliation is. I think everyone can agree that we've had some pretty crazy shenanigans the past few weeks. I'm not a huge fan of Trump, but I thought his offer that he had a while, what was it, not this Saturday, but the previous Saturday, I thought it was fairly fair, and I thought it was like the first time I'd really seen him on TV where he acted presidential. So I was kind of sad that Congress and the president still can't come together to get anything done. Not surprised because it's our government, but it was a little sad. Hopefully they'll get something together here soon so we can actually have a stable government that's hopefully not going to be the laughing stock of the world. But who knows? It'll be interesting. I also said last week on our last Market Meltdown that once the government reopens, you should expect a rally. We got kind of a bit of rally once it was announced that they intended to reopen the government. Not a very hard prediction to make. I think the hard prediction to making is when the government's going to open and stay open, you know, permanently, or at least, you know, have a budget for this year. A little bit disappointing there. Kind of a short week. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll look forward to talking to you all next week. Take care.